As Washington imposes sanctions, as NATO expands its influence, and as mainstream media declares the beginning of a new Cold War, India is making a bold choice. Against mounting Western pressure, New Delhi continues to deepen its relationship with Moscow. But why? What is the enduring value of the India-Russia partnership in the 21st century? And what does this bond reveal about the shifting balance of global power? In this video, we explore why India refuses to abandon Russia, not out of nostalgia, but because it sees in Moscow a trusted partner for a multipolar future. From military ties to energy deals, from diplomatic independence to strategic defiance of the West. This is the story of one of the most important geopolitical relationships of our time. To understand India's loyalty to Russia, we must first look to history. Unlike the colonial powers of the West, Russia, or rather the Soviet Union, never subjugated India. Instead, it offered partnership. In 1971, the Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship, and Cooperation cemented this relationship, providing India with vital diplomatic and military support during its war with Pakistan, which led to the creation of Bangladesh. At that time, while the United States and China were aligning with Pakistan, the Soviet Union stood firmly with India. This legacy of solidarity left a mark on India's strategic psyche, a memory of support when others turned their backs. This sense of historical trust forms the foundation of India's enduring relationship with Russia. When the West imposed sweeping sanctions on Moscow over Ukraine, many assumed India would fall in line. But India had not forgotten who had stood by its side in the past, and who continues to treat it with respect, not coercion. India's foreign policy has long prized strategic autonomy. From the era of narrow non-alignment to today's doctrine of multipolar engagement, New Delhi avoids locking itself into rigid alliances. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his diplomats have made it clear, India will engage with all powers, but will not be dictated to by any. While the West views international relations through a zero-sum lens, where any cooperation with Russia is seen as a betrayal, India rejects this binary logic. As External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar put it bluntly, "We will do what's in our interest. The world cannot dictate our choices." For India, strategic independence means working with both Washington and Moscow, with Tokyo and Tehran, with Europe and the Global South. In this vision, Russia remains not an ideological ally, but a pragmatic partner, a country that offers India sovereignty in its choices, rather than conditions and lectures. Defense cooperation remains a central pillar of the India-Russia relationship. Today, between 60 to 70% of India's military equipment originates from Russia. This includes tanks, fighter jets, submarines, and missile systems, all essential to India's deterrence posture, especially amid rising tensions with China and Pakistan. The S-400 missile system deal is a prime example. Despite threats of U.S. sanctions under the COTSA law, India went ahead with the multi-billion-dollar purchase, asserting its right to make sovereign defense decisions. Russia, unlike the U.S., does not place political strings on military sales. It is also far more willing to transfer critical technologies, a point not lost on Indian defense planners. Joint ventures like the BrahMos supersonic missile, co-developed by Indian and Russian scientists, showcase this deep collaboration. Even as India diversifies its arms imports, Russia remains its most reliable supplier, especially in high-end strategic systems. New developments include collaboration on stealth aircraft, nuclear submarines, and long-term maintenance of legacy Soviet platforms still in use by Indian forces. Energy is another area where the India-Russia partnership is transforming global trade. Following the Ukraine conflict and Western sanctions, Russia became India's largest supplier of crude oil, surpassing even traditional Middle Eastern partners. Over 1.5 million barrels per day of discounted Russian crude now flow into India, shaping global energy flows and challenging the petrodollar system. India has developed alternative payment mechanisms to bypass Western sanctions, including rupee-ruble settlements and currency swaps. This shift has allowed both countries to shield themselves from dollar dominance and expand bilateral trade. Beyond oil, India and Russia are partnering in fertilizer production, LNG terminals, coal supplies, and even rare earths. The International North-South Transport Corridor, connecting India to Russia via Iran and Central Asia, offers a strategic alternative to the Suez Canal, further insulating their trade from Western-controlled routes. India and Russia also cooperate in the fields of strategic technology and space. Russia's Rosatom is playing a key role in India's nuclear energy expansion, helping to build multiple civilian reactors. In space, the Indian Space Research Organization and Roscosmos have launched joint missions, shared satellite technology, and are working together on astronaut training for India's first human spaceflight program, the Gaganyaan mission. Russia has provided India with cryogenic engine technology that the West long refused to share. Once again, Russia's openness contrasts with the restrictive and proprietary approach of the United States and Europe. Yet, despite all these areas of cooperation, the West continues its pressure campaign. Since the start of the Ukraine conflict, US and EU diplomats have tried to force India into isolating Russia, but their efforts have failed. Modi's 2024 visit to Moscow, warmly received by President Vladimir Putin, sent a powerful message. India is not abandoning Russia. On the contrary, it is doubling down on a relationship based on trust, history, and strategic logic. At the United Nations, India has consistently refused to condemn Russia, instead calling for dialogue and diplomacy. Western officials and media pundits criticize this neutrality, but they fail to understand that India does not view global politics as a morality play. It views it as a matter of national interest and long-term strategy. So what does India gain from this partnership? And what does the West fear? India gains independence, the ability to chart its own path in a world increasingly divided by geopolitical fault lines. It secures access to reliable defense systems, discounted energy, strategic technologies, and diplomatic support. And it gains a seat at the table in shaping a new multipolar world order. What the West fears is that countries like India, large, powerful, and independent, will stop playing by the rules of the post-Cold War order. That they will no longer accept US-led institutions as neutral or universal. That they will resist the logic of sanctions, of intervention, of dollar-based dependency. India, through its Russia policy, is signaling that the unipolar moment is over, that sovereignty is not for sale, that the global South can and must act on its own terms. Today, India is walking a diplomatic tightrope. It engages with the West in Qua and G20 forums, while also leading BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization alongside Russia and China. It has defense pacts with the US, trade deals with the EU, and joint projects with Iran and the UAE. This is not indecision, it is strategy. India sees its partnership with Russia not as a relic of the past, but as a key to the future. A future where power is shared, not imposed. Where nations rise on their own terms, not through alignment with hegemonic blocs, where cooperation is rooted in respect, not coercion. In the twilight of Western unipolarity, India and Russia are crafting a new narrative. One written in oil arms, diplomacy, and mutual trust. A narrative where coercion fails, where friendship endures, and where sovereignty is not a slogan, but a principle of survival. Let us know in the comments. Do you think India's balancing act can continue, or will growing global tensions eventually force it to choose sides? And don't forget, like the video, and subscribe the channel to keep thinking the world how it really is.